Hello, this is your evil twin, welcoming you to a special bonus video for Let's Play Singularity. What you're seeing here is some old gameplay footage of the Central Docks chapter back in the early 2009 beta version of the game, a year before Singularity was actually released.
Garage is clear.
There's some pretty big differences between this beta and the final version. These explosive barrels start off old and empty. You need to renew them to get them full of explosive fuel.
Squad 4, respond.
So they can then be shot to blow open this gate. In the final version of the game, you instead use a crate to jump over a hole in the fence. The fact that these barrels start off aged and need to be renewed to be useful is quite a common trend. There are far more objects that need to be aged or renewed to progress. And you actually use the chrono ping to highlight and identify those objects. Unlike in the final version, you don't have objects made of E99 metal. Instead, the idea was that various objects were contaminated with E99 back in the 1950s disaster. And you need to use your chrono ping to find those contaminated objects. Now, in the time warp back to the 1950s, we're not armed with the Seeker weapon. So instead, I've got to do some normal combat. Standard weapons. So the player aging a pillar to cause an area to collapse, as well as aging that wooden pallet to cause the oil barrels to fall. The player can then fix that pillar to renew the walkway, and can age the alarm to stop the annoying noise. A nice detail is that when the player uses time powers on a chalkboard, it actually causes it to have a different message written on it. You'll notice the soldiers shouting in Russian accented English, rather than actually speaking in Russian as they do in the final version of the game. Somewhat different aging effect, a rather gruesome scream from that soldier. Also, shields can be aged to dust, rather than having to be grabbed and thrown away. And there's also jibbing. That soldier got blown to bits by that explosion. Here the player actually activates a device to cause the time warp back to the present. You'll notice the player's weapons are somewhat different. Rather than a futuristic Kalashnikov from an alternate timeline, it's a standard AK-74U assault rifle, as might be seen in the modern Russian Federation. See here the same puzzle. In order to activate the TMD amplification platform. As I mentioned in the main Let's Play, this is one of the few times you can actually see the player character, and that's because this video sequence was actually already done back in the beta version. And in the beta version, there were various movie sequences where you see yourself in third person. And they decided to include the same video in the final version of the game, despite getting rid of all the other third person sequences. Nice. Yeah, in this early version of the game, There was quite a different storyline. There was none of this business where history had been altered so the Soviet Union won the Cold War. See, the aging effects are a bit more subtle on the ship. You see this wave of rust without any orange sparkling effects. But yes, there's nothing about history being altered, so the soldiers that you fight in the present are actually this modern Russian Spetsnaz rather than Demichev's elite special force. In the final version of the game, those grates aren't in the way on those vents. You can just crawl straight through. It seems that for the final version of the game, they decided to make things more streamlined and put less puzzles and obstacles in your way. I think that guy was shouting in reverse.
Stay alert. We're not alone. I thought I heard something. Hold up. What's this? What the hell? Is that all of them? Watch the nest! Watch the nest! No! Recon leader, we have a man down. Shit! Hey! I found him!
I suspect that in the earlier version of the game's storyline, this chapter was actually much earlier in the game, and that might have been the player's first introduction to phase ticks. It's actually thanks to that footage that I knew that phase ticks could turn soldiers into reverts. Reverts seem to be far less of a threat, or just unfortunate victims rather than actual enemies. See here a Deadlock device. Back in the beta, Deadlock wasn't a TMD power, rather it was a type of grenade bomb device that you could pick up and move around. So you'd only get to use them in certain situations wherever they actually provided you with a Deadlock device. And unlike in the final version of the game, a Deadlock will actually completely stop enemy bullets. We can see here that puzzles were greatly simplified for the final version of the game. Originally they were a lot more complicated. The player has to age that sheet of metal in order to clear line of sight to the electrical panel, which has to be renewed to stop the electricity. Then the player sees that there's a fire ahead, so the player needs to renew that pipe to stop the water leak, so that there will be water in the pipe at this section. The player then has to cause a new leak here in order to put out the fire. It's pretty clever. In the final version of the game, the only thing that needed to be done was to stop the electricity. Another puzzle where renewing this device opens up a time rift, allowing the player to travel back to the 1950s. The player then needs to age this device, create this beam of E99 energy, and that energy beam destroys a bunch of obstacles that are in the player's way back in 2010. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it enlightening. Seems to me that originally Raven Software wanted to make a more puzzle-based game, along the lines of Half-Life or Portal. But then they decided to streamline things and make it a lot more combat-orientated, turning the puzzles into little hiccups rather than actual obstructions for the player. Thanks for watching, and do join me next time.